Do you know a basement bar in Boston became the most famous address on television, and half the country showed up to watch a washed-up pitcher flirt with a woman who was clearly out of his league? Well, that was Cheers. Premiering on NBC in 1982 and running for 11 seasons, the show starred Ted Danson as Sam Malone, the smooth-talking ex-ball player turned bartender, Shelley Long, and later Kirstie Alley as the woman who made his life significantly harder. George went as Norm, Rhea Perlman as Carla, John Ratzenberger as Cliff, Woody Harrelson as Woody, and Kelsey Grammer as Frasier. Together, they turned a barstool sitcom into one of the most beloved shows in television history. But behind the tap handles, the laugh tracks, and Norm's endless tab, some of the weirdest, funniest, and most heartwarming stories were happening off-screen. Today, we're counting down 15 weird facts about Cheers. Stick around for number 1, because the story behind one quiet photo on the bar wall hits harder than anything the writers ever put in a script. Number 15. The show that almost got canceled. When Cheers premiered in September of 1982, America collectively shrugged. The show ranked 74th out of all network television programs. That's deep in the basement, the kind of territory where shows go to quietly disappear. So, why didn't NBC pull the plug? Simple. They had nothing better to replace it with. NBC was dead last in the network wars, and Cheers stuck not because it was winning, but because everything around it was losing even harder. Meanwhile, critics were handing out Best New Comedy awards, and NBC executives actually listened. They renewed it. Then came summer reruns, which back then weren't an insult. They were a second chance. People who'd skipped the show all season suddenly discovered the bar, the banter, and Sam and Diane circling each other like two people who absolutely should not be together, but absolutely would be. Word of mouth did what the premiere couldn't. Ratings climbed from 74th all the way to the number 1 show in America by season 9. It took 8 years, but the show nobody watched became the show nobody could shut up about. Number 14. The theme song almost didn't happen. The theme song to Cheers feels like it's always existed, like someone carved it into the walls of a Boston pub decades ago, and the show just showed up to claim it. Not even close. Songwriters Gary Portnoy and Judy Hartangelo had already written a track for a Broadway musical called Preppies, and the creators of Cheers wanted it immediately. The musical's producer blocked it flat, so they went back and kept swinging. Multiple attempts, all rejected. When they finally landed something that worked musically, the lyrics were the problem. Too Boston-specific, too tied to one zip code. The producers wanted something universal. Less geography, more feeling. Out went the hometown details, and in came the idea of a place where the noise stops and somebody actually knows your name. Portnoy then went into the studio and layered his own voice over and over until it sounded like a room full of people singing after way too many rounds. It wasn't a choir. It was just one guy multiplied. 2 rejections, 1 legal shutdown, a complete lyrical overhaul, and the result was a theme so perfect that 40 years later people still sing it at bars without being asked. Number 13. The real bar that became a tourist trap. Cheers was based on a real basement bar in Boston called the Bull and Finch Pub, found through a Yellow Pages ad. The creators sent their set designer out to scout, and a little pub on Beacon Street caught their attention. The moment the photos came back, they knew. But here's the part that messes with your memory. That center-of-the-room bar, where Sam wiped glasses and Norm planted himself like he was paying a mortgage on that stool, it didn't exist in real life. The actual Bull and Finch was smaller, with the bar running along the wall. They redesigned the entire layout for cameras. That didn't stop fans, though. By 1990, the Bull and Finch was drawing more than 500,000 visitors a year and had become one of Boston's top 3 tourist destinations. The only problem was it didn't look like the show inside. So a ground-floor replica of the TV bar was eventually added, giving tourists the version of Cheers that only ever existed on a set thousands of miles away. In 2002, the Bull and Finch finally surrendered and officially changed its name to Cheers Beacon Hill. Number 12. Norm's real name was Hillary. For 11 seasons, Norm Peterson walked into that bar, and the entire room erupted. Norm, a ritual, a greeting, practically a religious experience. Then season 9 dropped the bombshell that Norm's full legal name was Hillary Norman Peterson. The undisputed heavyweight champ of doing absolutely nothing productive was named Hillary after his grandfather. Vera tells Rebecca off camera, Carla spreads it through the bar like a five-alarm fire, and suddenly everyone is processing that the king of beer and bad posture has a name that belongs on a country club membership card. Norm claims his grandfather killed a man for laughing at him, until it comes out that Grandpa Hillary was actually a surgeon who botched an operation on the guy. Less barroom revenge, more unfortunate malpractice with a personal grudge. George Wendt's real-life wife, Bernadette Burkett, voiced Norm's never-seen wife, Vera, throughout the entire run. But no matter what his birth certificate says, the guy was never anything other than the man the whole bar yelled for. Number 11. Cliff Clavin was never supposed to exist. Cliff Clavin, the postal worker who turned every conversation into an unsolicited lecture, was never in the script. John Ratzenberger originally walked in to audition for a minor one-line character whose entire job was to sit at the bar and say beer. He didn't get it. But instead of heading to the parking lot, he stopped at the door and asked the producers one question that accidentally changed the entire show. Do you guys have a bar know-it-all? He didn't wait for an answer. He launched into a fully improvised bit, posture, delivery, and unearned authority all included. The producers wrote the character in on the spot. Cliff was originally planned for just 7 episodes and wasn't even a mailman. He was written as a security guard. The occupation changed to postal worker 2 days before filming began. 7 episodes turned into 11 seasons because the chemistry with Norm clicked so fast that what started as a short-term experiment became one of the most recognizable duos in sitcom history. Number 10. Sam Malone was almost a football player. Sam Malone was never supposed to throw a pitch. Originally, the character was a former wide receiver for the New England Patriots. NBC tested 3 pairings for the role, and when executives watched Ted Danson and Shelley Long read together, the decision made itself. There was only one problem. Danson had the swagger and the timing, but he looked nothing like an NFL wide receiver. So the writers rewrote the character to fit the actor. Out went the football backstory, and in came a Red Sox jersey and a career arc inspired by Real Boston pitcher Bill Spaceman Lee, a promising arm derailed by the bottle. That pivot changed everything. A football player behind a bar is just a big guy pouring drinks. A washed-up pitcher in a baseball city is a man who had one thing he was great at, lost it, and built a second life around the only place that would still have him. That's the emotional engine of the entire show. Number 9. Norm's beer was absolutely disgusting. Every single episode, Norm grabbed a beer and drank it like the highlight of his entire existence. It was all a lie. What George Wendt was actually drinking was near beer, non-alcoholic, flat, and room temperature. The producers wanted to serve it on tap, but it wasn't available in kegs, so they ran cans of generic non-alcoholic beer through soda dispensers long before filming. By the time Norm's glass arrived, the stuff had been sitting under hot studio lights for hours. The prop department added a pinch of salt to every mug to force a frothy head that made it look fresh from the tap. So what Norm drank, take after take for 11 seasons, was warm, salty, flat liquid with a manufactured foam cap dissolving on top. When admitted it required serious acting. Whenever the director called for another take, the whole cast prayed nobody would blow a line, because another take meant another sip. The perfect ending, though. During the series finale, after 11 years of the fake stuff, the cast finally drank real beer on camera. One last round, the real thing, the send-off they earned one terrible sip at a time. Number 8. The set was playing you the whole time. Everything about the Cheers set was designed to make you feel like you'd wandered into a real bar, and it worked because the whole thing was rigged. A hidden hinge in the center of the bar allowed the right half to swing open and the wall behind it to fold back, revealing Sam's office without the crew ever tearing down and rebuilding between setups. Filling the bar also took 30 to 40 extras minimum just to make the pub look properly occupied. But the sneakiest trick was the lights under the bar. Nicholas Colasanto had a notoriously tough time memorizing his lines, so the crew taped script pages beneath the bar top and installed small upward-pointing lights, so he could read them mid-scene. The most lovably forgetful bartender on television was literally reading his lines off the bar. Those same lights accidentally solved another problem too. Early on, The moody lighting made it hard to see Ted Danson's eyes on camera, and the upward glow from Colasanto's cheat sheet setup happened to fix it. One sneaky solution and two problems eliminated. Number 7. Carla was literally yelling at her real dad. Rhea Perlman's real-life father, Phil Perlman, wasn't a trained actor. He was a retired manager at a doll parts factory in Brooklyn. But the man loved show business. When he visited the Cheers set in 1986, he asked director James Burrows if he could sit in as an extra. Burrows shrugged and pointed him to a bar stool. Phil simply never left. What started as one visit turned into 8 seasons, over 30 credited episodes, and a background presence in well over 100 more. Then in 1990, when a recurring actor passed away and the writers needed someone to absorb one-liner duties, Phil stepped up and delivered perfectly timed quips like a man who'd been waiting his whole life for a line. Rhea even got to splash water directly in her father's face in one episode, which is either the greatest perk of nepotism or the most Carla thing that's ever happened off-script. Most people bring their parents to work once and send them home. Rhea Perlman sat hers on a bar stool and turned him into one of the longest-running extras in sitcom history. Number 6. Kirstie Alley showed up as Diane on day 1. Replacing Shelley Long was a suicide mission with a laugh track. For 5 seasons, the Sam and Diane dynamic had been the show's entire emotional core. Then Kirstie Alley showed up to her first table reading in a blonde Shelley Long wig, a goody two-shoes dress, and yellow paint on her dark eyebrows. The room went still for about 3 seconds. Then it landed. She wasn't trying to be Diane, she was making fun of the idea entirely. Director James Burrows said it cut the tension immediately. Ted Danson said she came in like a ball of fire. And on her first night of shooting, George Wendt and John Ratzenberger realized nobody had gotten her a welcome gift. So they drove to a sporting goods store and came back with a shotgun. The card read, "If you ever want to leave, you'll have to shoot your way out." Alley thought it was hilarious. Just like that, she wasn't the replacement anymore. She was part of the bar. Number 5. The spin-off everyone forgot. Everyone remembers Frasier, 11 seasons, 37 Emmys, one of the most successful spin-offs in television history. But Frasier wasn't Cheers' first attempt. That honor belongs to a spectacular misfire called The Tortellis, which followed Carla's ex-husband, Nick, to Las Vegas. Instead of a cozy Boston bar with sharp banter, audiences got neon, bad decisions, and chaos with nowhere to land. It lasted 13 episodes before vanishing entirely. Meanwhile, a different creative team would later produce Frasier with a completely different approach. One spin-off got 13 episodes and a burial. The other got 264 and a permanent spot in television history. Number 4. The night Cheers shut down America. On May 20th, 1993, approximately 93 million people, roughly 40% of the country, watched a bar close for the last time. No streaming, no DVR, no catching it later. The only finale that pulled bigger numbers was M*A*S*H. Inside that finale, Diane came back, meaning for the first and only time, Shelley Long and Kirstie Alley were both on screen together. Near the end, as the cast sat smoking cigars and talking about the meaning of life, Kelsey Grammer's voice cracked. Not Frasier getting sentimental, but Grammer himself actually crying after 9 years at that bar. Then came the final moment. The bar emptied. Sam looked around and said quietly, "I'm the luckiest son of on earth." Then a knock at the door. "Sorry, we're closed." Number 3. The cast got drunk on live TV. The finale was emotional and carefully crafted. The after-party was neither. Right after it aired, NBC rolled straight into a live Tonight Show broadcast from the Bull and Finch pub in Boston. The problem was the cast had been toasting since 2 in the afternoon. Water guns came out. Spitballs flew between cast members. Kirstie Alley appeared via video singing something entirely unprintable. Jay Leno stood there like a substitute teacher who lost control in the first 5 minutes and later called the whole thing a huge mistake. The next morning, Danson sent flowers to apologize and George went called, because of course Norm would call. Number 2. The secret ending nobody saw. For 5 seasons, Sam and Diane were the entire show. When news of Shelley Long's departure leaked, The writers did something clever. They filmed 3 separate endings to the season 5 finale. The first, shot in front of a live audience, was a full wedding. The audience went nuts. The second and third were filmed on a closed set with no audience and no leaks. The version that aired had Sam quietly telling Diane to pursue her writing career, watching her go, and saying simply, "Have a good life." Then, alone in the bar, he imagines elderly versions of them dancing together, the future they'd never get. The third ending has never been revealed. Somewhere on a closed set, it's still keeping it secret. Number 1. The photo that watched over the bar for a decade. Nicholas Colasanto's coach was the heart of the bar. Not the funniest, not the sharpest, but the warmest, the old-timer who forgot your order twice and still made you glad you came in. During season 3, his health declined in ways the cast could see in real time. He kept the severity private. His last full episode filmed in late November 1984. On February 12, 1985, Colasanto died of a heart attack at home. He was 61. In his dressing room, he'd kept a framed photo of Apache leader Geronimo, his good luck charm throughout the show. After he passed, the cast took that photo and hung it on the bar wall near the piano. No announcement. No storyline. No character ever pointed to it or explained it. It just appeared and stayed. Before every taping, cast members would stop by the photo for a quiet moment, their way of checking in with Coach before the cameras rolled, like he was still backstage, just running a little late. And then in the finale, as the bar emptied for the last time, director James Burrows specifically blocked this moment. On his way out, Ted Danson stops and gently straightens the photo of Geronimo. No dialogue. No music cue. Just a man adjusting a frame on a wall while the country watched without knowing what they were really seeing. In a show about a place where everybody knows your name, they made sure nobody ever forgot his.